When working with teams to move them from these activities to outcomes and from these little inputs and hours that they're doing every week over and over again to focus on the outputs and what they're getting and the value out of those hours, there's a root cause problem that comes up often. And the reason why you have to work on this workforce energy management sectors is because all these little sectors allow teams to adapt. So when you think about all the hours you're putting in, all the inputs that you're putting in, all those assets and expensive payroll that you're putting in, if you're not getting the outcomes and the outputs that you need, and they can't adapt accordingly, you're micromanaging, you're double dutying work, you have a lack of clarity, and there's people lost over the woods. So those assets, those expensive employee hours, are actually waste, and it's an expense. So instead of bringing value to your organization, you're actually just kind of trickling money away in the woods because people are lost, they're disengaged, and they don't really know how to adapt. So when you dig into some of these issues that we're talking about low productivity or disengagement and the cost of that, what we're really talking about is teams struggling to adapt. That's a root cause problem. Is teams are having a hard time adapting in this ever changing world, ever demanding world. And it's really because of lack of clarity, the micromanagement going on, and then there's bottlenecks in your process because now things have to move faster. You are out of the game if you cannot process things fast. And I know that's a horrible thought, and I don't agree with it either, but people want on demand. They want convenience. And so if you want to play the game of selling a product and having a business, you have to be fast, you have to be efficient, and bottlenecks are keeping you from getting there. So let's talk about some steps to guide your team to be more adaptable and really set the framework of this adaptability and these agile teams. Now, on my other videos, we talk about hiring for agile teams and placing people in the right seats based on their skill sets and how those type of roles adapt, because some roles have to adapt faster than others. So it's important that you are placing right people in right seats. And also, what are we doing with our leadership team? Because that can make or break a business on how they move forward through change management. So the first step that I want to talk about is moving from this task-driven, like detailed bullet point job descriptions, that this position has always done that function, so this position will always do that function. Moving from these tasks-driven outcomes to actual outcomes. So just because you process something, just because you check something off your to-do list, doesn't make it an outcome. It leads to an outcome. It leads to something that is processed, something of quality, something that is produced for a customer or a client, but the task of it is just an activity. So we have to start splitting up these definitions of tasks versus outcomes, because what you want to focus on is the outcome, and that will allow your team to start to adapt on how to get there, because there is new ways to get there. There is new minds entering your team and multiple variables in play that should be addressed. So let's just look at a few of these. Say if I say we always process these reports every month because it gives us a visual of what's going on in the business. What is the outcome? And we all have those reports or those data metrics that we track and have to submit. Where does it go? What is the actual result of doing this activity? And that's why you need to focus on the outcome. So say the outcome is we want to increase client and customer engagement by so much percent. Okay, that's the outcome we need. There's many different variables that go into play, right? And each department participates in a different way. So the clarity is we need this much more engagement from our client or customer. And then at the department level, they bring clear kind of goals and expectations of how they're going to achieve their portion of this. Do you see how everyone is in play? Do you see the engagement of those activities suddenly because the outcome is defined? Do you see that because the outcome is defined, you can flex and pivot within the department level, with even in the individual level, because we all have a North Star. We all have a point that we're trying to reach together. So that's the first step, is moving from task driven to outcome driven through clarity of the goal and then breaking it down for clear steps and value at the department level and at the individual level so they can pivot and still get to that outcome. Now, the second step I want you to think about is your leaders. It's interesting right now that companies are still, I should say, HR departments or training departments are still fighting for budgets. And as an HR person of 2 decades, this I never understood, because people are your biggest asset. They are your biggest expense on the P&L. And I came from manufacturing, so of course, P&L had capital expenditures, new machinery, things like that. That could be quite large as well. But the repeating expense was payroll and benefits. And also, in our case, workers' comp, millions of dollars in workers' comp. And so when you look at leadership training, it is pennies. It is less than pennies compared to the millions of dollars you're spending on payroll, millions of dollars you're spending on benefits and workers' comp and safety things. So what are you doing with leaders this year to train them in an ever-changing world? It's interesting when I get into companies that some leaders haven't been trained in a couple years. I'm talking pre-pandemic. People, processes, product, systems are so different from pre-pandemic to now, and they haven't gotten any training outside of their walls. The other thing that I see, which is a big mistake, and I've tried this myself as well, is the HR person is the trainer for leaders. And I completely disagree with that mindset. One, because that HR leader is already overwhelmed with other things. They should be leading onboarding. They should be leading operational process things within their businesses. But doing soft skill leadership training, I think, is a big no-no if you are within the same organization. And here's why. There are many things that your leaders are not telling you because you are the HR person. Yep. And because I was a really good trainer, I was training leaders within my organization, and I could tell there was things that they wanted to say that they would not say to me because I was the HR person. So if they want to say, hey, Joe, he's not doing that, and actually he does some things that are completely unethical, they wouldn't bring that up in the leadership training because I'm the HR person. And guess what the HR person is also responsible for? Taking care of harassment claims, taking care of unethical behavior. So if I would hear that as the trainer, I would have to step in, even if they said, I don't want you to do anything with this. It's my responsibility as the HR person to take action for unethical and harassment behavior. So when HR people train their own workforce, and I'm talking on the soft skills and leadership training, not the annual compliance training or the process, product, systems of their operation. I'm talking about leadership soft skills. Let's get to the people behavior part. They're losing a huge part of the conversation, which is keeping people back. Because we need to talk about Joe and the unethical behavior. We need to talk about how we're going to approach that conflict conversation. And that's where all the growth is. So they're missing a big hunk of leadership training when they train them themselves. So that's just something to think about, is let's reduce the HR workload plate here, hire an outside trainer. The other thing is that there's really crucial conversations that need to happen in that leadership training, and they're not happening because you have an internal resource training them. So something to think about there. So as part of leadership training in this step, are you, as a leader, defining the what and the team solves the how, or are you just doing it all? And what I'm seeing is they're doing it all. I work a lot with emerging leaders and middle management, and they're doing it all. And the hardest part within those roles is a lot of them were promoted within, which I love. It's great, but there wasn't any training about letting go of their past functions, letting go of their past positions. So they're still kind of working in their old positions and doing more than they should. That's micromanagement. The other problem that you're running into between the what and the how pass off is the styles. So between product, process, and people, they're split between these three at any point in time. They have to take care of all three at any point in time. And I get small businesses, you have to kind of do it all. You don't have multiple leaders within your organization to take care of it all, and that's fine. But are you allotting intentional time towards people? Because leaders, when conflict happens and a lot of change, will hide out behind product and process. And it's a natural human behavior that Product and process is in my control. Product and process, I can move forward and see tangibly it improve. People are complex creatures. I could do everything in my power right, and they still could deny that access forward. They still could leave our organization, right? You don't have as much control. So often leaders in high change environments, in stress, in overwhelm, will hide behind product and process. So when you have a leader that is in charge of all three, they will hide out behind the other two. So the person above them needs to be asking really great value add questions during their one-on-one to make sure that people are being taken care of in their department and they're not hiding out. The people above them need to make sure that that overwhelm of process and product is not taking over the people sector, because people need to be having that support and change from their leader and aligned across the department. So people do need time, intentional time with their leader. So if a leader is trained by an external source, if leaders are intentional about their people time, then they should be able to define the what, and the team, they respond with the how, right? So this again is shifting towards outcome driven versus task driven. So if I'm a leader and I'm telling you what and I'm telling you how to do it, one, that's micromanagement, but two, we're just moving back to task, right? There's nothing inspiring about that. There's nothing engaging about that as someone on that team. But if you define the what and we can start brainstorming the how, that's where innovation happens. That's where adaptability happens. So do you already see the shift? The other thing that I'm not seeing as much, and it's more time related, right? A lot of time management goes into these workforce energy management programs when I go into clients, is that it's not aligned by all, even within the department. So there's definitely dysfunction between departments and pass-offs, but within a department, not everyone is aligned on priorities. Not everyone is aligned on where we're going. What is the ultimate goal this year? What is the ultimate goal this year? And is it reiterated and clear over and over again everywhere you look? Or are we just like shiny object? Oh, we have a customer complaint. We're going to completely pivot over here. Oh, we have a new partner. We're going to completely pivot now over there. That's confusing, right? So what's the ultimate goal this year? Because then people can pivot and still reach that goal. Outcome driven over task driven. The other thing to really align your department that leaders need to work on is, what does success look like? Because success looks like this for this person, this for this person. Oh, and Kelly Bubolz, she thinks success is over here. So what does success look like for the team? And again, is it reiterated over and over again? So when you have path A and B, well, which one better aligns with what success looks like? Do you see how clear that becomes? Do you see that we can adapt, and decision makers don't have to be just one person, because everyone wants this ultimate goal, because everyone knows what success looks like, getting them all aligned. And then the third step I want you to take is really making intentional time during your department to dig into root cause problems. When we are in meetings, we want to firefight. We want to solve the problem, so we don't give enough time to actually finding the root cause of the problem, and we just keep talking about the symptoms. We keep talking about how we don't have enough time. We keep talking about that sales doesn't have clear information in the CRM. We keep talking about, well, that machine is old. We keep talking about how no one wants to work anymore. These are all symptoms. So when you can take a moment to really dig down why things are not as they should be, you will find the root cause problem. And a key kicker I found in this is that no one wants to work anymore. In manufacturing, we were struggling with certain machine groups and getting operators to stay for long periods of time. We had a lot of turnover, and it was very short term, like under 90 days. And the common thing people said was, no one wants to work anymore. We never had this problem before. And this was about 2015, 2014 timeframe. So it wasn't a world of opportunities where people could jump jobs as fast either. So it was interesting that people were leaving, because it was still kind of hard to get another job. Well, it turns out, and we did actually a mathematical root cause exercise, that it wasn't HR, which was me at the time. So I was taking all these hits saying, we're hiring the wrong people and no one wants to work anymore. And I'm like, I'm having these interviews. That doesn't line up. That doesn't line up right. So we did this mathematical root cause solution exercise, or root cause problem exercise, and it actually turned out that our onboarding on the technical side and how they learn the machines was archaic. It was not even what the product we were running anymore. Some of the buttons and switches on the machine weren't even there anymore, and so we were setting them up to fail. So we would do all this recruitment, we would get them onboarded, we would have all this expense of trainers, but really it's just like whenever they had time to mentor them, and then it would be so frustrating every day for 12 hours that eventually they would be like, I'm out. This isn't worth it. So what we did is we refocused efforts and resources. We even hired full-time people off of the machine floor, our really good operators, to become technical operator trainers. And it completely revamped the situation, because the root cause problem wasn't people don't want to work anymore. The root cause problem was our training program on the technical side needed a major overhaul. And when we did that, guess what? All those symptoms went away. The symptoms of quality problems, the symptoms of turnover, the symptoms of disengagement, the symptom of why don't people want to work anymore? Because we solved the root cause problem. So taking that time to really dig into what is the root cause solves not only the current symptoms that you want to address, but other dysfunctions in your operation. I want to just highlight, through the tools within the Workforce Energy Management Program, it brings clarity and better communication, enhancing that communication, building that team energy and trust, and we focus on workflow and productivity optimization instead of adding more, that it gets down to the root cause problems of your operation. It gets to those root cause problems of human behavior and how leaders are going to start addressing it versus avoiding it. And as we work through the workforce energy management tools within each of these categories, naturally it moves from task-driven to outcome-driven. It moves teams from this exhaustion and spinning the wheel every day back to excellence, because teams know how to adapt. They know how to navigate change. We've just forgotten how to explore outcome-driven paths.